Hello, viewers and subscriber. Welcome once again. The new screencast, meaning the continuation of my previous screencast. The last screencast, I already discussed with you the DevOps cultures and also the DevOps with the continuous integration and continuous deployment process, how it is works, and all those are new. They can you can look for the previous screencast and follow the upcoming screencast, and can I believe you can get clear understanding how can how can you make as a DevOps engineer as a profession, and even though how can you make a really good software development or software engineers as a beginners, or doesn't matter how long you are working in the industry, in the professional industry. That's what I mean. So that means in the previous screencast we talked our project structure. We talk about how can you take your source code into the Git repository or GitHub or GitLab, and the possible tools for building the projects, and then the possible unit testing tools for JUnit or Selenium. Doesn't matter which type of application you had. And then there's some commercial and open source tools, the integration tools for the for like Jenkins and then Bamboo. And then after the your integration tool is working, and then you have a deployments. Yeah, with that side we already talk about this one. The deployment could be the standalone Java based deployment, or maybe the deployment with the Docker and Docker Compose, or the deployment will be the Docker and Kubernetes contain orchestration tools. That's the possibility. And also we already discussed how can you integrate or monitor your microservices with the existing Spring Boot tools like the Actuator, Micrometer, Grafana, and Prometheus. This is the part we will add the later part of the when we finish the developments, how it is works, and how can you install those the monitoring dashboard into the your microservice applications. Because nowadays it is important to maintain your microservices, to how it is works, and how is the integration testing and the load testing, how it is a request and response time for all the REST APIs or REST endpoints. And even though you can also monitor the your JVM, monitoring how the memory allocations and the capacity of the memory and all things together. So let's today we what we do, we will concentrate how we can start the microservice development. How can you develop the microservices? What I mean, how can you get the requirements, how can you plan for those requirements to fit the client requirements, and also how can you start the coding, and then after the building and testing, and then deploy. And the deploy means that this first time we will do the standalone jar file deployment. That's we already talk about that ones. So I mean, the deployment means the different deployment process. You have a jar based deployments, and they have a Docker Compose based deployments. All the simply you need the standalone jar files, and then after that you need to be write down this one. Those who are new, just look for the previous screencast. There is a detailed discussion how can you configure, but I will do in the when I did develop the application, I will do the step by steps. So if you go to they have the Kubernetes based deployments. There's a lot of the config names, credentials, and the service and deployment configuration for the applications. So that means one applications, if you have one applications and you need to be deployed, different way of doing that deployment can be standalone jar file based deployment, could be Docker Compose based deployments, or could be the Docker and Kubernetes based deployments. So first we concentrate, we implement our microservices, and we deploy, and we try to check the jar based deployment how it is works. Now I already check it, it is working. That today I try to check with you how it is done. So it see the jar based deployment exactly what we expected. So we just simply run the commands in the command line window, simply commands. We see our service definitions, the environmental settings, start services, and the jar file versions. What we do, we implement, we discuss the implementations, we take the new versions and try to implement together, try to deploy this jar-based deployment, how it is works. That means we will feed the requirements, we code it, we build it, and we try to standalone jar file based deployment, how it is in a little bit professional way. And if you are in a more professional way, that means you need to go as a Docker Compose, depending what's the company is required. If they said, okay, we need a Docker and Docker Compose based deployment, let's do it. And then after, if there's some company says no, we needed to deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster, we can also do it. But let's do step by step. So we already did one versions that's I already discussed into the last screencast, and you can look for my channels. And then now we will implement all the features and functionalities, and also and make new versions, and how can you externally configure your service and deploy into the different environments. That's I said. And here the development environment with the production test and UA release and QA, and just simply your installation department or your operation department or operation team. That's I say the operation team means here your operation part. This is the operation teams. How can they deploy? Just you need to be sent to them these two files as standalone jar-based deployments, and they will change which port are free for these machines, and what the machines they would like to install the application microservice, and this is the version, which version they need to be installed, and then database information, the database name, and then user and password. Just they need to be simply change this and this and this and on this and this, and then your new version, and then they need to be changed it here. This is really professional way to deploy the application or standalone jar file based deployments. And after that, if you have these configurations and you call the environmental settings here and call the very simple jar.jar files, and then so on and so forth, it works what we expected as a professional way to handle it. So let's go back to our development part and what we discussed. This is the development part. Oh no, this is the Flyway base. So that's the important part I need to discuss. So initially what I try to discuss with you like that way, like we will start the projects, we implement all the features functionalities as per the client requirements, and then we try to build the schema with the Hibernate. Very fast on Hibernate, those you don't know, because if you see the Spring JPA Hibernate DDL tool update, that means that you can have a create, update, delete, and a create, update, and so on and so forth. And then meanings that you say the Hibernate will take over all the responsibility, will create your database schemas. So that means very fast we implement. That means I will give it to the Hibernate to make those schemas, because if you look the schemas part, this is the schemas that we created, that the Hibernate itself created this one. So you have the schema, and there's a zero table because maybe we remove it somehow. Let's run it again, refresh, and see that 3 tables here. So that means this is the job Hibernate done for you. So that means that's a reason we started from the Hibernate will create schemas, and after that we do not need to create with Hibernate. We will integrate the Flyway. How can I integrate the Flyway? And the Flyway will do the integration part, the database migration part, so the switching between that one. So I will try to implement first, like Hibernate will create the schema, and then after that, when the Hibernate create the schema, and then we will write down here null. Okay, the Hibernate don't create the schema, just you need to be the Flyway need to be create the schemas. That's the schema definitions here. That's what we have it. But we can simply copy what the Hibernate created the schemas, and then we make the version control system version 1, and then 2 for all the sequence creations. Because at the moment you need to be create yourself the Hibernate will create a schema, and then you need to be yourself to generate the uh, the schema, the respective sequences for your files that you see. Then that means we don't need to be do ourselves how